got a special early PEBAheads episode this week with Sean and Michael. There's been a lot of activity in the league going around, and we figured it would be a good time to talk some different league issues and just things that are going on. Right now, there is a poll out there for a potential change about qualifying offers and that process. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that and the different options that are available. We're gonna do dive into the Burrough Watch with Crystal Lake, and then kind of talk about trading and some of the recent trades in the league. So let's get started on the qualifying offer portion. I'm going to share my screen, pull up the forums so everyone can kind of see the different options we have, and it's going to show what my vote was, but I'm okay with people knowing, so not too worried about that. But it's an interesting debate that's been going on for a few seasons now. And different traction, I guess, on that a change was needed, but there's a lot of different thoughts and different ideas on what that change can be. So it was kind of nice to see when the poll came out that there were multiple options. I think there's a few of them that I would be okay with, other than remaining the same. But I guess, what were your initial thoughts, Michael?
I think when this first came up, I forget how long ago at this point, months ago, um, I was like, no, don't get rid of it. And that was mostly because I had probably my first player in a very long time that was coming up for a qualifying offer. So like I still wanted to be a part of that and see if I can get a pick and utilize it for once. I honestly, if I think back to my first tenure with New Jersey, I don't think I ever got to take advantage of it back then either. So I think selfishly at that point, I was just in that mindset of, hey, I want to take advantage of this. I want to get a pick. And I did get a pick and grabbed a reliever I liked, but I know that just through all the discussions that have happened and just kind of seeing it more in play, I my choice, and I don't mind sharing either. I did that last one because I said this in the forums as well, that I would be for increasing the qualifying offer amount and moving the comp around, but I'd completely be content with just removing the qualifying offer piece of it altogether. Because it does create headaches, and I don't think that it's functioning the way that I think everyone has always intended it for it to function. And it's more often than not, if you, do your players even get to that point? Like I feel like if you're a small market team or if you're a mid market team, if your players getting to that point where they're going to get a qualifying offer, they're good enough. You either re-sign him, you trade him, you do something else that pretty much eliminates that qualifying offer, so it's not even an issue. So it kind of like negates it. It does keep people from signing players, or even like Orlando Trujillo, he signed for what, 8.5 million 1 year. Last second, I think the season already started at that point, and I think it was a great pickup for Crystal Lake, but would he have gotten more traction ahead of time? I think he probably would have, because I know there was a kind of a dash for pitchers early on. So it's how realistic is that the player would not get signed, teams would ignore him essentially until the season started and then get away with like a low ball. And there's nothing wrong with what Crystal Lake did, obviously. It's just that's just the way the system works. That to me, I think that's a good example of why it's not really functioning the way it's intended. Because would a player of that caliber in his time of, or that year of his career, 34 years old, sit there and just wait it out and accept just a 1 year $8.5 million deal or 8.3 million or whatever? Probably not. His agent he'd be throwing a fit to his agent or something. So
Yeah, and I think for me, the big thing of why I don't think we can just keep things the same is because the game isn't calculating that dollar risk of loss or the dollar gain a player could have by accepting a qualifying offer and putting teams in a position where you're not just tagging someone that you have no intent of even trying to bring back, or like, or just, you get in that gray area of, there should be a decision making process, or that risk of, hey, if I offer this and this guy actually does sign it, then I'm on the hook for 15 million. I think a lot of that now, the way it's set up, I don't think a lot of people even are considering that that player could accept it, because very rarely does a player accept the qualifying offer in my experience with this game. So that was kind of why I was leading towards also the raising the qualifying offer amount, because I think, to your point, if you're a small market team, or even a medium market size team, if you're waiting for the qualifying offer to get something back when you're going to lose a player, you're probably missing the boat. You probably should have traded them a year or two sooner to get way more than a qualifying offer in return to help you in your franchise. But it really, I think the intent overall, at least from the Major League Baseball perspective, was to benefit all teams. And no matter the size, that if you lost a guy or they just refused to negotiate a new deal with you, you got something back. And whether that's working here or not, I mean, I think definitely teams are getting something back. It's a matter of how you decide you're going to do that, and if you're going to jump the gun and get something more, or you might be a team that's on the edge of a playoff run, or you're in the playoffs and it's like, I can't afford this guy next year, but I know I'm going to get a comp pick back for them, so I'm just going to ride it out and see if we can make it run in the playoffs. So there is that aspect of it that I don't necessarily want to get rid of. So I had voted to keep the comp system, but raise the qualifying offer amount, so that you're kind of having to little bit more of a decision making process rather than just throw out a $15 million one. And the biggest thing for me is, like, when you see a guy that wants like 7 years and 25 million, right away that offering him the 15 million is not even going to be like a thought process. So
Exactly. I think where we're aligned is I don't think it can stay the same. I think most people are, for the most part, aligned that current state doesn't make sense. Something has to change, whether it's complete elimination, or I know that if you count the other three categories other than keeping it the same, that's what, 3 votes for some sort of change. So I think 10 of the 11 votes so far are for some change. I don't think keeping it the same is really worthwhile. It's just a matter of, I guess, ultimately deciding what that change is.
yeah, and really, I'm okay with getting rid of it altogether. I just want to ensure that the reasons for getting rid of it are at least, I guess, honest and put out for everyone to, uh, I guess, take in and understand. I've seen over the years people say that it's somehow going to benefit small market teams by getting rid of compensation and qualifying offers, and I very strongly against that idea. I don't think it helps small market teams at all. But bottom line is, you take the comp tag off, and we're just talking about dollars that can be thrown at someone. That the teams with the bigger money are going to have that advantage. So I do like in the comp system where, if you're one of those bottom teams, but you're on your way up, you do kind of have an advantage over some of those teams, because you're not going to lose the pick, they will. And if you do have the money and you're planning, you can get an edge on some of those teams and sign them. So it's another strategy, but I think I'd like to know more, I guess, on where people are coming up with the idea that small market teams are benefiting. All right, so to not beat the dead horse too much with the small market team talk, we can switch a little bit on this discussion where, we're both in agreement that something needs to happen. We've kind of covered that part of it. I mean, ultimately, it's going to be interesting to see, does this get implemented next season? Is it something that needs to be discussed more? I'm guessing the timing of it makes me believe that it's going to be probably a next season potentially, or this off. I mean, really, it's this off season, so
Yeah,
the earliest decision making.
I could see a winter meeting announcement. Well, actually, wait, I'm trying to think
That's
because
be earlier.
qualifying offer, it'd have to be earlier than that, yeah. I guess we'll be hearing more soon.
Yeah, we'll be finding out. Anything else you wanted to discuss on that one? Or
No, I think qualifying offers have, from my perspective at least, have been kind of beaten to death at this point.
yeah, make it go away.
Exactly.
Do something there.
Do something. What are those memes where it's that little guy standing there poking it with a stick? Come on, just do something, please.
Yeah. We don't care what happens, just do something.
Exactly. We're tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my biggest takeaway from it is like, I definitely am tired of hearing about it. Like, and with the board's credit, they're probably tired of hearing about it too, and that's why there's a poll. So,
Speaking of things people are not tired of hearing about,
yeah, get over to our Burrough Watch. So we got Crystal Lake here. There's my head scout. Look at Burrough. There's everybody else. No, OSA. But anyway, kind of last time we looked in, he was kind of going through a rough patch, but now he's kind of had a couple decent weeks in a row where kind of showing what he could be, but he's still think I don't know. I think it must be, I mean, the splits look good ratings wise, but still kind of that a little lower average than what I was expecting out of him. And he knew that the K's were going to be there, but I don't know. It's interesting.
he's struggling a bit more with lefties than I thought he would be. The other thing is, like, you have that screen open. I've got the qualified rookies batting leaders screen open myself, and just seeing. I mean, he's not having a terrible year. He's, yes, contact wise, he's bottom of the barrel pretty much right now. But majority of the categories, he's hovering in the top three. Second most home runs, third most RBIs. So he's right there in the conversation every single time. So I think that's good to see. We should definitely be happy, or RJ should be happy that he's not completely fallen off the cliff. I think earlier I was a little worried because I think his average was even lower. I think it was like 210 or something.
Yeah.
Something worse. So
yeah, those first 2 months were challenging contact wise. He started off hot with the home runs and then really cooled off in May. But it is good to see that June average wise went up and still hit a lot of doubles. Maybe could have been a lot of different reasons there. Could have been different ballparks you're playing in that taking away some home runs, but are still hits. But
yeah, I mean, if it's a little telling though, if you go a little further down there, the home and road games. At home, he's doing really well, hitting 270. Splits home run 6 between home and away, but he's been struggling on the road, struggling a bit versus lefties. struggling a bit at night, which is the majority of the games. Maybe he just needs glasses or something to get some
Yeah.
glare going there from his contacts. Who knows? But interesting to see. I think so far what I've seen from him this year, I probably am a little less negative on him. Um, would I like to be seeing more? I mean, you got 60 million tagged to him, so of course he would always want to see more. But as far as a prospect that's only 24 years old and went straight to the league, I mean, it's not bad. It's nothing to sit there and get too pissed off about. And hey, look, his stolen bases have gone up a bit, so something clearly has changed there on RJ's side to get him running a bit more. He's been caught stealing a little bit more than probably is liked, but at least he's not making the effort now. So yeah, good to see overall. I think it's progress on Burrows.
Yeah, and that's I'd say the big takeaway is that he is progressing. He's not had that down period, but then rebounded with a nice month. So as long as you're getting on base, and if you with his stolen base threat ability, if he's walking or getting singles, at least can turn a couple of those into the doubles. I mean, Crystal Lake overall, I think you wonder too. They've had the downtrend the past month or so. At the same time when Burrough was starting to heat up, so it's kind of an interesting chain of events there, based on how hot they were to start the year.
Yeah, April 15-9, May and June both struggles, 9-19 in May, 10-18 in June. Um, yeah, it unfortunately has flipped a bit there for them, but still a long season.
I mean,
Maybe they can get
yeah,
back up to 500.
May was the month where Burrow really had a long stretch of or drought, but June when he heated up, not much of a different result there. So
Everybody else must have been cooling off when he was heating up,
yeah,
stealing their thunder. That's what it was.
Antonio Cuevas, that's 6 ERA. When he's one of the brighter spots in the league from a young pitching perspective, is kind of definitely stands out to me. Their early season stuff, but
Yeah, that's pretty rough for him when he's coming off of some solid seasons beforehand with much lower ERAs. I mean, he just sub 4 last year, just over 2. I mean, he was a reliever, I think, when he first came in, but
yeah,
yeah, surprising to see that significant of a change.
and it looks like their defense, their efficiency's down, but their zone ratings pretty good, and errors are low too. So it's not like their defense is really necessarily failing them per se. It's probably just a lot of loud contact that's turning into runs.
Yep.
We'll bring RJ back on so he can talk about his team rather than us spew about it some more. But there's been, other than the comp pick talk, there's been a lot of talk lately about different moves that have been made in the league. I mean, it started off with a move that you were part of. Not, I would say, and then I think you made the comment, or it was someone else that said, okay, Arlington and Palm Springs said, hold my beer.
Yeah. I was upset I missed the trade conversation last time you guys did the podcast. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it. Dinner was good, by the way, but um, but yeah, it was interesting that as soon after that, I think we had one day of quiet after the pod was released, and then we had a flurry of activity, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we should probably talk about trading again because I think I probably have some different thoughts or different philosophies than maybe you guys, and obviously I probably haven't been impacted the same way that you guys have in some of the recent moves, but I do probably approach it a slightly different way. So I think it was worth having another conversation about it. And I know there was a lot of chatter in Slack as well. So So yeah, I don't know. Maybe let's hear your thoughts on the Wizard coming to New Jersey first, and then
Well,
I guess
I,
we'll
I
hear.
will preface this by saying that most of my comments that I've made on these type of podcasts and even on the Slack channel are in regards to probably like less than 10% of trades that happen. And when I say that, it's mostly the idea of shopping and trying to get the best return that you possibly can. So, but to pivot back to the Wizard, one, I mean, I was stunned because I've had talks with Havana in the past, and they seem to really hold tightly to their star players and want to keep them. And so yeah, when I saw the trade, I was like, "Whoa, how did Michael even get it get this working?" And then, I mean, ultimately, yeah, like when you see a power hitter like that, you're like, I would have liked the opportunity, but at the same token, if you feel like you are getting close to value of what you thought the player was, and you really don't see a point of drawing things out for days on days just to get maybe a little bit more incremental value, then I don't know if that's where Havana was coming from on that, but I can at least understand it a little better if that was the case.
I think for me, and to your point, like I know I've in our chat for the pod and everything, I've been spouting off a lot of random things at you guys that you're probably annoyed at hearing at this point. Um, for I guess let me preface it this way: for me, perfect world, everybody would be doing everything. You would be talking to every team. You would be trying to really advertise if you're trying to get best value. You're letting other teams know, whether it's through dirt sheets or like giving out little rumors or something that, hey, this guy's potentially available. We're thinking of going in this direction. There's, I mean, if you think of it from an MLB perspective, they have whole squads of people that are doing all this stuff all the time, and I know this is the not glorious answer to a lot of, at least from my perspective, to these issues that we probably see in the league. Is just, for me, the biggest aspect for any trade is really the individual GM's time, what they have available to them to put in, whether it is canvassing other teams, whether it is cold calling people and trying to get those conversations started, whether it's doing the deep dive analysis, whatever it is. It's each individual has their own available time in their lives to do what they need to try to get their enjoyment out of the league and make the changes that they want. I think admittedly some of us that are like obviously in the podcasts and everything are making them, we probably have a little bit more time. So we have more time to bug people consistently. Like you, I've had conversations in the past with Havana, and I keep conversations going with a lot of different teams throughout the year. Um, I tend to approach trades from a perspective of, this is what I think is my comfort level. I'm open to discussion, and I want to hear counters. I want to hear conversations. And I want to have conversations. I don't mind them taking longer. I don't mind them going quickly. It's just each different conversation just goes differently. I think this one kind of came about naturally, and I felt I filled a need. Patrick felt that he filled a need, and we didn't really need to advertise it. So from my perspective, I thought it was fine. It's probably, could he have gotten more? You hope every team could probably get more if they go about it, that ideal exact way. I just don't think that ideal exact way works all the time just in the setting of our league. So that would be the only kind of big preface that I would put, um, because you don't know what someone else is thinking. You don't know what they're trying to fill unless you ask them and they're open about it. Some people are, some people aren't. Um, and I think I brought this up in conversation. Like, the advertising thing is a great idea. I get it. It's something you want to do, but at the same time, like, how well did that work for Jay? He made it pretty clear kind of what his expectations were. He made it clear he wasn't asking for 1-to-1. He was clearly going to be willing to take something less. and he still wasn't getting those offers. And not everyone wants to deal, I guess, with the crap offers that come in. I know that there are probably a handful of GMs that I personally don't really put much worth into the offers that they send my way because they consistently have been bad all the time, and I've let them know straight out that they've consistently been bad. But those conversations don't typically go very well. Other GMs, I'm more than willing to have conversations back and forth, more than willing to, if it doesn't work, I'll let them know. And if it doesn't work for them, they're more than able to let me know, and I'm able to move on. So, um, yeah, that's kind of my, little soapbox rant of what I perceive the trading as in PEBA.
Well, I mean, back to the Francisco deal, I think another aspect of it too is where it's a little bit different than some of the deals that go down is that Francisco's on an expiring contract. So
Yeah,
you have, going in, if you're in Havana's situation, most people are going to use that situation against you and be like, well, you're not gonna re-sign him, so you're not going to be able to get him anyway. So if he got to the point and he's like, hey, I'm comfortable with this return, I'm not going to be able to sign this guy, move him now and just be done with it, move on and start building towards the future.
exactly. And now it's on me to try to make it work that I can re-sign him. And quite frankly, it will be a little tight for me to re-sign him, depending. I don't know what his request is going to be. But yeah, it's on me. For all I know, it could, and I'm hoping it's not going to end that way, but it could just be a half a year rental, which would be terrible on my part to have given away a first for a rental. But yeah, I'm expecting. Obviously, I went into this with the intention that I should have the flexibility to re-sign him. If that doesn't work out for some reason, I don't. The game sometimes has that little wrinkle where the manager and the player don't line up, and that he's like, I don't want to have anything to do with your coach. Well, then what am I doing? Well, I will find out, I guess, after the sim. Like, am I trashing my coach so that I can see if I can re-sign him? Like, there's all other types of implications that can occur that I don't know yet. So the hope, obviously, for me going in was I would be able to re-sign him, and that's kind of the goal. So obviously, if I can accomplish that, I would say probably in most people's eyes that I benefited the most because I'm closer to competing, and obviously I'm getting a very good player. Maybe not at a premium position at first base, but I'm still getting a very good player. Where obviously Havana's taking chances on prospects and picks, um, and hoping for the best in that way and giving themselves some flexibility going forward. So different priorities, in my opinion, but I don't think by any means that it's an absolute terrible trade one way or the other. It will be for me if I can't get an extension done, but we'll see soon enough.
Well, I know said we were done talking qualifying offers, but this is a prime example of a deal that was done that Havana avoided getting into a qualifying offer scenario and having that be the only thing they got out of losing a player that they might not have been able to sign to a long-term deal. So I would say if you look at it from that set of classes, they got more than what they would have gotten as a comp pick.
I
So
actually don't think he's, for my screen that I see, he's not eligible
is
for
he gonna be
compensation.
is he like an ARB guy or was he
Yeah, not eligible free agent after the contract expires. So he's
how did that work?
just gone with the wind if he doesn't get re-signed.
That's weird.
Maybe he got a qual. I'd have to dig through his history. I don't know if he got a qualifying offer in the past or had that option come up in the past.
Yeah, I wonder if he got was it this year?
Doesn't look like it. He's got 2 year extensions, 6 year extension, contract extension worth 14 mil. I don't think he had a qualifying offer. I'm curious why he doesn't.
Yeah, because
At least when
normally,
I'm looking at his contract, it doesn't say that he's got any compensation available.
yeah, free agent type after the season, no compensation. which he should, by his history, should. Huh, that's interesting. He's an
Yeah.
international amateur that's been with Havana that whole entire time. So unless one of these, well, he signed the 6-year one in December. He signed 2-year one in March. He signed a 1-year one back in
It would
February.
have had to have been last year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I want maybe,
Maybe the 14 was to avoid the qualifying offer or to letting him go.
but yeah, but the date is like February, so that would have
Yeah,
already passed. So yeah, that's weird.
it would have passed that period of time in the off season. You're right. That is it's a little odd why he doesn't have him tied to him, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Regardless,
another
you
wrinkle.
wouldn't have been able, because he was acquired during the middle of the season, you wouldn't have been able to tag him anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
now it's making me
But
wonder how many players are incorrectly coded in here because maybe that's why we only had 7. No.
maybe. See, there's more going on. Get rid of the system.
Yeah. Hurry,
Now
take
it's
this
not working.
page down. Yeah. I realized I didn't have that shared when I was going through that, but you can go look it up yourself if you would
Yeah.
like to see more on that one. But yeah, then we have the other big trade on a player from Arlington, James McCoy, that a lot of history in the league over the past few years of being available, then not available, then uh, trades being agreed upon that were blocked because of various reasons. Which I'm not going to say the board was incorrect in doing so. I think they were trying to probably protect uh, a GM from getting the most, I guess, value or in return for a player of McCoy's caliber. Even in Major League Baseball, there's not too many times teams would trade a player that's this developed and with years of team control for for anything, let alone just even considering it. So normally these are guys that big parts of teams, so the returns are going to be high. So understand that. But then out of nowhere, Arlington decided that they were going to trade him and found a trade dancing partner in Palm Springs. So what any early what was your initial reaction when you saw it, Michael?
Yeah. I think initial reaction was probably the same as everybody else. Like, whoa, was not expecting that, for lack of better terms. I mean, touche to Palm Springs. As simple as that. Um, you got McCoy. You got you got more than that. That's the thing. Like for me, it's not even just that you got McCoy. You got more than that. You got Fuentes is he's a prototypical decent bat first baseman type of prospect. So that's okay. I think I'd probably be more excited about Baverstock. I know that Justin was excited about his long streak of not giving up any runs that unfortunately was just recently broken. Maybe to Palm Springs detriment, all of a sudden Baverstock will go in the other direction, just start giving up runs left and right. But that's a nice piece as well. Canseco's a little bit on the older side, but still another productive piece out of Kentucky originally. Um, so yeah, I mean you got four guys that, or at least three of them that probably can instantly contribute. Fuentes is probably not there yet, but I mean you can throw him in and give him a chance. Nothing to be overly like upset about as a piece. It's he could definitely be decent. He hasn't really shown too many huge sparks in the minors. 2038, he did pretty well in Double A, but yeah. So I mean, that's another piece, and you got all of that for obviously a handful of prospects as well. And then I think, if my understanding of reviewing the deal, yeah, you got that the handful of prospects of various quality. A couple of them I like, a couple of them I don't really like, but then a lot of it, I don't know if that was contract matching or what that was exactly, but there's a lot of aging guys that I can't imagine keeping probably past the season. So, like I said, touche to Palm Springs on that one. It's he's got some nice pieces going forward, and Justin has some work cut out for him to hope that Estrada can develop, because Estrada is a nice piece. Don't get me wrong; it's he's a nice pitcher, but it's obviously anytime you get a guy that young, that's not that developed, now all of a sudden you're taking on the responsibility of making sure that, or hoping that he develops the same way. So there's definitely some high risk there, but he looks nice. Like I said, the handful of prospects I don't have a huge issue with. Um, they're pretty decent overall. It's I think it probably some of it goes back to conversations even with just like Jay when he was trying to move his superstars. McCoy has all the identifiers, you know, you're going to call him a superstar. And are you going to get one for one? Probably not, but you can hope for pretty close. And I think there was probably some things about this deal that I would have requested more, I guess, from Justin's perspective. I think it would have been warranted to ask for that. And also, I guess for me, I was surprised. I was more surprised that that wasn't a part of the package. So I guess what I'm referring to is I'm surprised how light the draft capital is in this exchange. Everything else, like I said, I can understand. For the most part, going through the prospects, like I said, I don't have a huge issue. Um, some of the other guys, the older ones, I don't know if that's just an offset, and that's fine for whatever it is. It's not the end of the world. But it's truly just how light on the draft capital this one was, and that's to me where it really swings it in Palm Springs' favor. And I apologize. I know I was going on a rant there for a while. So, what are your thoughts, Sean?
Well, I don't. I mean, other than the fact of being a team that already had a deal with Arlington for this player, so I'm already, I guess, jaded to, or at least feel that way on this whole entire thing. I mean, I have no hard feelings towards Palm Springs. I think they did what any team would do, and you know, we're looking to get better, and they were able to do it and address it multiple ways. The big thing for me is one, if you're from in the Arlington perspective, why is the deal so big? Like, why are there all these pieces in it? Because, and maybe it gets into kind of what you were talking about earlier about time and, people's willingness to, really do this in the most effective or most return way. But like, for example, Antonio Canseco, it's paying him, it's part of this deal. He's paying him 15 million, 16 million next year. There's an opt out and a player option, which I've never really understood thought process on doing those kind of deals, but that's what he offered. My thought on this is you have a outfielder, corner outfielder that hits well against right-handed pitchers. What would have been the reaction from the league if Justin said, "Hey, I'll pay half of this amount, and then you offer me prospects for this player"? Instead of just making a guy that actually has some value, maybe not at 15 or $16 million a year level, but I'll pay a quarter of that, or get something of value back for this guy instead of just throwing it away, and the only value you're getting is you don't have that money being spent on the player. I think things like that in this deal, when you really start analyzing how it benefits Arlington, is where it really comes into question for me, because even the top rated prospect that they're getting out of this, what's the best that he becomes? Another McCoy? So you basically traded McCoy away, who has 3 more years of arbitration, for developing a 20-year-old prospect that you're hoping becomes that next guy. Like, to me, I think when you got to get, like you said, more draft capital out of it, more stud prospects. You know, I always view it kind of, if you're giving up and stars, I know is just a thing. It's not the end all be all, but if you're giving up a 5-star prospect or a 5-star pitcher who arguably ratings wise, if they fully develop, will be one of the top pitchers in PEBA, I'd be wanting like 2 or 3 prospects of that same caliber back in a deal. And I don't see that in this deal. So I think that's where it's confusing to me. And I don't know what the direction of the Arlington franchise is. And I don't really trust, based on the history with it, that saving 15 million or 20 million a year is really going to change anything with this franchise. So I know some people say that I'm being too harsh or whatever, but I really don't feel like I am. I mean, bottom line is, it doesn't matter how much time you invest in this game. Like, you can't publicly complain about budgets and how a league's set up or owners or all these things, and then basically not look in the mirror and see the types of things like this trade is doing to your franchise. Would be my biggest kind of soapbox rant on this.
Yeah, I don't know if people. I would say these are probably the more PC responses at this point, and that's fine. I'm not trying to say either GM did anything wrong. There, like I said, there's always so many other factors that outside of the game time, this, that, or the other, that can have an effect on a deal and everything that we might not know about or whatever, or
Yeah.
maybe there's rationale we don't understand. We don't know that. I don't know. I can look at the high level at Arlington and say this is what they're doing from my perspective. Is that accurate to what Justin thinks? Probably not. Same with Palm Springs. I can look at them from a 1,000-foot view and think this is probably what Palm Springs is doing. That's just my experience with the building teams and everything, and it's probably inaccurate compared to what Rob has planned over there. So these are just our points of view.
Yeah.
To me, I agree probably with some, like, where I probably wasn't so quick to judge 95% of other trades and say, you don't need to advertise every single one. Talk to who you want to talk to, trade whoever you want to talk to. Do all of that. Doesn't really matter, as long as you feel you get your worth. This would probably be one where I would agree with that sentiment. Like, probably would have benefited from some more effort of, hey, this is I'm finally looking to move the guy that people have been salivating over for a long time. As difficult as it's going to be for me to sit here and field all of those responses, have at it. Send me the other 30 GMs or however many other people's offers
Well,
and read through
and
all. And
yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, in this situation and in any others, if you've had teams reach out to you about a player and you start talking about compensation packages or what it's going to look like, and you decide, hey, you know what, I'm not ready, that's fine. But if it comes up later that you are ready, it doesn't hurt to reach out back to those teams. And I realize you're not going to remember all of them, but we have a pretty good idea, especially on top players, who's asking. And in this case, there's at least 2 teams that already had trade offers that were accepted. I know of a third team that they got close, and there's probably other ones out there. So you have competition, and even just going back and saying, hey, are you still interested in this guy, would have been at least a more acceptable outcome than just finding out by going on Slack and seeing that there was a trade. Like, but I will say I do like to kind of focus the discussion a little bit more on a positive note. I do like the moves that Palm Springs has made. I think teams out there that are kind of trying to find a model or a comparable team to how things are being built, or if you're unsure of how to build a team, Palm Springs is one that you can really look at and you can analyze and you can see that what they're trying to build towards. I think this is just another move that kind of takes them to that next level of their building. Like now they've got a true ace that they can build around. They've got two other young stud starting pitchers that look like they will be at that level at that point. So he's got three really quality starting pitchers, and the other starting pitchers he has are not bad options either. So you get that taken care of, and then continue adding. I know he Rob added also, I believe, Rollins from Florida.
Yeah, the Rollins. He picked up Hisashi Takuchi, the no-name guy,
Yep.
in the draft. I mean, things are coming together quite nicely for Palm Springs. To your point, yeah, I'm liking what's happening over there, what Rob's got going on. Obviously, he had some prospects already coming up that needed to just be managed a little bit better, and I think he's doing a good job with that since taking over. And he's taking risks. Let's just be honest, he's taking risks, and sometimes that's what you have to do. Fortunately, sometimes you're going to fail in those risks, and sometimes you're going to succeed in those risks. Um, yeah, and
Well, we
that's
were we
what it
were
is.
we were discussing earlier today. Rob and I did a trade. I required Nelson, who just is thriving in our lineup and putting up numbers that are ridiculous. And we were kind of talking about it, like, is it, what did you kind of like? What did you see something that I missed? And I was like, no, like I viewed Nelson as a young second baseman with a good offensive profile, and he fit into my window. And with your window, if you're really looking at 2 or 3 years down the road, that's either his last year of arbitration or he's a free agent. And can you really afford him at that point? And you make. I like that about Rob, that he's looking not just at the now, he's looking at a few years down the road and how these decisions impact his team. But yeah, I like how he's looking ahead and not just focused on the now. It shows, and I think it's one of the things that you don't have to be, I guess, diving in the weeds like some people do to be able to do that. Like our league moves at a speed that it's not as fast as a lot of leagues out there. So I think that does cater to, it gives time to dive in and really kind of do those deep dives, but it also helps people that might not have the time to like maybe spread it out over a few days between sims instead of all, or, do it as a late night look. Um, I know, I think that's where it stands out to me is like, you don't have to, I guess, you don't have to just kind of be like some evil super genius to play this game and enjoy it and have fun and be successful. Not saying that Rob isn't a genius, but it shows you just have to have it. It's a lot of it is being patient and having a plan and sticking with it, and that is
Yeah,
very hard to do at certain points when you're building a team, especially when you get close to that area of time where you think you're going to be competitive, or getting stuck in that trap of I just need this one more guy that's going to push me over the top, and then it turns into every year being I need that one more guy.
yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly. I look at Scott and what he's had to go through in Reno. It's having some of the most difficult parts, probably I'd say, about having a somewhat slower league. It's just being patient because every move you make, you're either going to enjoy it that much longer or you're going to regret it that much longer because you're constantly sitting there staring at it. But Reno, it's they've Scott always joked it's 1 year on, 1 year off. It's he had no explanation for it, and I think I asked him on the pod the one time when he was still doing them. It's like, how do you stay sane for those off years? Like last year when New Jersey dropped, I mean, what we had 90 something wins the year before that, um, 95 wins, and then the following year struggled, just absolutely struggled out the gate last year. We still ended up 500. We came back towards the end of the year, but like I was in that kind of pit where Scott is having to deal with every single year. And this was like the first year I had to do it. I'm like, I just made all these changes. I thought I had finally a cast that I can expect to do well enough that I can finally, start saving some of my picks and start growing internally. And we shit the bed last year, for lack of better terms. But I considered at one time last year blowing it all up. Thankfully, I didn't. This year, we're obviously playing much better, and I'm back to wheeling and dealing my picks, so I have nothing left again, and just having to deal with that. But I think it's made me more of a savvy, picking up random minor leaguers and hoping they turn into something, and trying to make the best of what I can find. Um, but yeah, it's not easy. Having to sit there and watch and wait is definitely difficult at times, and then having the patience to, okay, let's give it more time. Let's see if I can, if they'll perform differently next year. And I think all of that being said, your example of Eric Nelson and that trade between Palm Springs and you guys, it's obviously once again kind of like Palm Springs pickup of McCoy makes him look like a genius. Your pickup of Nelson makes you look like a mad scientist. Like, what did you know that he didn't? I mean, he's pretty much put up the production in 1 year that he's put up in 3 years in Palm Springs. And what is it? A fluke year? Is this the coming out party for Eric Nelson? He's the next big thing. We don't know. That's the thing. We don't understand the OOTP engine to that detail to know exactly what's going on, but obviously something's working. Could it be a whole lot of combination of who's in the lineup in front of him, behind him, the park factors? Is it truly just that time in his development where Eric Nelson finally was just going to click and that was it? We don't know. So I mean, could he have continued being that, 2.5 to maybe 3-star second baseman in Palm Springs? That could have been his career going forward, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Clearly something clicked and he's exploded for you, and that's amazing. And like, the only comparison I can draw is obviously, I'm probably tired of talking about him at this point, but Don Washington, it's like he didn't look like anything. He looked like he had some potential, but it didn't look like he looks now. And now he's probably on pace for rookie of the year, and I don't know how I would have survived this season without him. But sometimes just a change, and I think this is maybe why some of the active traders are always consistently so active. Sometimes it's just that change from one team to another. For whatever reason, everything just hits right and they take off. And that's kind of what you hope for. It's almost like that weird little adrenaline boost of like, holy cow, you're like an adrenaline junkie or something. I got that trade and the guy's doing super well now, and wow, I'm so much smarter than everyone else, or something like that. I don't know what it is.
I do think there is something to the coding of players and the change of scenery type thing, because I've seen it too many times where a guy will have great ratings and you're like, but he's not producing, like he's producing well, but not up to the level you're expecting. And then, there's someone trades them and then they take off, maybe not to this extent or this level.
Yeah, it but definitely seems to happen more often than not. So maybe that is why so many people are trying to be active all the time with trades. It's
I mean,
nice when you hit.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too with Nelson is that I'm wondering, with the low leader, like low loyalty, adaptability, work ethic, if it does have something to do with the makeup of your team, not only like chemistry wise, but also just protection in the lineup because he didn't really have any with Palm Springs at the current state, or not, not what he has now. Now he's right in between three power hitters. So basically there's not going to be too many intentional walks. There's not going to be pitching around going on when you've got Martinez right behind him.
And see, that's the other interesting thing because I know that you and I've had this conversation before because Martinez started off slow.
Yep.
Even, I mean, look at Woodard now, he's starting off slow.
Yeah.
I mean, half a year, but it's how much has Nelson's growth stunted some of the people around him.
Yep.
I mean, Martinez, I think, is still having a solid year. It looks like he's still on pace for 30 plus home runs, still hitting really good average wise. So it seems like he's turned around, but Woodard's not his 5 WAR, 30 plus home run self right now. And it's how much of that thunder has Nelson because he's clearly excelling so much, and clearly teams now have to either pitch around him or they have to change their strategies. If this is me making a lot of assumption that OTP
Yeah.
is doing this, but assuming that it is doing all that, clearly, I mean, he's taken away some of those opportunities and shine from other people, and it's interesting because even if he's excelling so much for you, it's potentially having impact on your other players as well. So does that make you, like, now in the future rethink Woodard, who's a former first round pick?
Yep.
He's having an off year. Does that change your stance on him? He had 3 great years, and fourth year is kind of a bit of a slump. Like, does that make you rethink the Martinez deal? It starts getting you thinking of, like, okay, well, what the hell's happening with the rest of your team? Even though there's nothing wrong with it. That's the thing. You're
Right.
in first. There's nothing wrong with it. They're playing well enough, but it's something to look at least if you want to spend the time. And
It's definitely made me do a deep dive on where I have guys batting in the lineup. And when Woodard was out, I had Martinez batting second, and then Woodard's expectation is to also be a cleanup hitter. So when he returned, I put him in cleanup spot, thinking that, okay, get him going, put Martinez a second because he's got speed and power, and I like having speed and power in my second spot. And it was, working well. Like you said, Woodard started off slow, and batting him fourth, he's not producing. So this past sim, I moved him up to second to see, maybe that can get him going. Early results, but I think it was 2 games there. Batting second, he's hitting 600. But yeah, nothing, just 2 double. But it'll be interesting. I'm gonna let it play out a little bit. I want to get some better numbers because just a bigger sample size. But I mean, 115 plate appearances, batting fourth. He's got some RBIs, and some of that could be Nelson driving guys in ahead of him. But you would expect more doubles and more home runs. You're still gonna have. I can understand the RBIs being down, but you would think, just based on the type of player he is, I mean, there's not been too many. Like, I know when I started this league, Woodard's potential was way higher than what it is now, like what his actual ratings have come out to. I think this last version, he was one of the players that didn't fare well on the transition. He went from an 8 contact guy down to a 6, and that's part of the reason why I don't believe the whole notion that, oh, when you switch from version to version, the underlying ratings don't change. Well, something changed, and it happened on a lot of not when I say a lot, I mean, it was noticeable across the organization with players that were 8 contact guys and dropped to 6. So I think there is some correlation to whatever they did with the calculation, that maybe gap, like when I'm looking now at this, maybe gap was more important towards that contact rating, and maybe they changed something in the formulation or the formula that lowered it. I don't know, but that's what stands out to me with him being such a high gap guy, but then his contact dropped. It's just kind of weird. I don't even know if I think I can show you in the
I mean, I see it in through my own scout as well. It was 2037. He's looked like, super stud.
yeah.
Whether you look at OSA ratings or if you look at your own my own head scout, he still looked like a stud. And then all of a sudden, 38. And I think 38 is when we made the initial change. We're in our second season in this version. And yeah, I mean, clearly he lost contact. He lost a little bit of power. Um, something has changed, whether it's the game that did that. Yeah, what other culprit is there? It's you have to think something. It's you can only go off the information you have available to you, and that's it's not like he went and
It's not like he got injured and then had a ratings drop or was performing poorly and had a ratings drop. Like he was 5 WAR player and hitting about 300 in a time too where there's been a lot of changes to the sliders hitting positive, making, we had the year of all the 50 home run guys, but despite that, he's been in that high 30s range for the first 3 years of his career while we were making those changes. So yeah,
yeah. Unless the one thing that potentially he had a 1 week concussion. That was it. Maybe he just got, he got dinged in the head that or whatever to get that concussion that one time, and that was it. Maybe that was just the lack of better term, the switch went off and whatever happened completely changed as a player.
yeah.
Um,
I
I
mean,
mean, I guess I can see that if it doesn't give you details why he got the concussion, maybe if you
maybe
somehow
he's
can go
the
back and
maybe he's like our PEBA version of Jason Hayward, where you have
Jason
the
Hayward or Chris Bryant or something, got
yeah.
dinged in the it hasn't been the same since.
I mean, geez, so story time quick. When Hayward was a rookie for the Braves, I was at Cardinals spring training down in Jupiter, and it was like they were they're starting to hype him, but the hype still hadn't really hit the levels that it did like when it came opening day against the Cubs. But we're watching this guy take batting practice, and they told us the day before or the last time the Braves were there, he hit a ball that went so far that it went over the like visiting or like the Marlins like training facility like at Jupiter. They've got the well up until I think they're making a change now, but the Cardinals and Marlins have like their locker rooms and training area that are in the outfield. He hit it over the building and then it landed and shattered someone's windshield. And I mean, for him to hit it that far, I mean, it's a big parking lot, and with all the amount of baseballs that are being hit, like it shows you, like they weren't expecting it to be a problem that someone was going to hit a ball that far. Like, but yeah, it's just crazy to see like how much he's changed as a hitter. I mean, he's still big and he's still strong, and for some reason, he has no power anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. Mechanics get a little fear in you. Who
They
knows?
always talk about his swing, and it's like, why would you change your swing from being one of the most powerful hitters in the game to a contact slap hitter? Like to me, it's like it's in your head. You don't want to get hit. Like maybe it's staying like he was staying on inside pitches early on, and then once you get drilled in the head, you're like, nope.
Yeah,
I mean, he's made a great career after it, but I mean, if you weren't paying attention to MLB at the time, or maybe are too young to pay too much attention, you really should go and look at like some of his numbers in the minors and early numbers in majors, because this guy, I mean, Hayward was totally different player than what he is now. I hope that's not what's happening with Woodard, but
yeah. Hopefully not. I mean, he's coming up for another arbitration bump.
yep.
Nice little bump there of another potential 3.5, 4 million. but
Good
that's
unit.
probably based on prior, still that massive string of 3 seasons of huge potential to,
Yep.
I
Kind
mean,
of
season.
ironic too with
Yeah.
the Hayward tie-in that Hayward is very notable for his playoff speech during a rain delay for the Cubs and being a leader, and Woodard is also a captain. So
See, there you go. They're just,
the
it's
tie-ins
mimic.
keep coming in, and I'm not happy about it.
You just need every game to be a situation where he can give a speech and
Well,
you'll
it's
be set.
crazy. Is like he had those. He had a couple, before the Cardinals acquired him. He just had really bad, a couple just kind of down years, and then when he played for the Cardinals, he had like a rebound year and didn't really get too much attention. And then when he signed the big contract with the Cubs, then people started kind of taking notice that he wasn't producing at the level that he was expected to. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do they say? At least he plays defense.
Yeah. Gold
Yeah,
Glover.
you good
So
role, but yeah, Gold Glover.
look at
Well,
that.
what
Other
else do you?
baseball.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Bob's probably really confused right now.
We're gonna get a talking about a defunct league that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and who are these players? I don't understand. Sorry, Bob. Sorry.
Sorry. Other than that, I was hoping to get into the All-Star
Yeah,
piece, but I think because it's so close to it being actual All-Star game time, Mike doesn't want anyone to take his thunder away. So I think the actual results are gone off the page now,
oh,
or
okay.
that slab. So I don't know if you have energy of going through the individual actual. Um,
What would you think? Maybe put
I
it like just the league leader and stats page, and then just filter by position or something, or
think you can go. Surprisingly, I don't see the option to, like, when you do the award voting, you could set it to just the to see the actual scores or
yeah.
whatever. I don't have that option for All Stars, so
Okay.
you kind of stuck doing that. I guess the one big one, I just, I guess, talking higher level, I was surprised how often this year the messaging was you shouldn't be voting for my guy. There's clearly a better player. I've never seen more, I guess, voting in a for another team's player rather than your own. I guess, or I guess talking up other or talking down your own players, I should say. I've
Yeah.
never seen more teams do that than this year. With like, stop voting for my guy. He's garbage. Vote for somebody else.
Especially
Um,
in a league with the amount of writing and history and story aspect of it that a lot of people enjoy.
yeah,
Because, like, to me, it's like when you're looking back at a guy's career and you're like, oh, and some people are like, oh, it doesn't matter how many All Stars. I'm like, to me, it matters. Like, it still matters to me. Like, you're identified as one of the top players at your position that year. Like, I think it does mean something. Like, now, granted, we've talked about like in the IL last time we were talking to Evan about Rocky Nichols being blocked by Vito for many years and not getting all-star appearances because of that. But same token, I'm kind of like, there are backups. You could, he's number two. Normally the number two
yeah.
second or first baseman gets in, which he did, I think, last year with Nichols. So.
And that's probably the piece that I don't 100% understand. And that would be if, and I know Scott was desperately trying to get Mike on his podcast back in the day. I know Mike's busy, but that would be an interesting thing to run by a board member, how that works to designate the backups. Because maybe that's the point of, you get some of these secondary votes, these third votes, these guys that are throwing their players on there just so they have one vote to be like, hey, it's the second highest picked guy. Maybe he'll get on there that way. Because yeah, it's clearly some good quality players are blocked. Rocky Nichols is one of those guys that, we've had the conversation before. Ratings wise, looks like he should blow the stat sheet apart. And by all means, he's a good good player. He's had some good years, so nothing against him at all. But clearly, when you've got a competition like Vito, and even this year, I mean, he's got Roberts is nobody terrible. So I know that Jay's playing Roberts there, so he's having a great year as well. Um, there's always that other guy. So
Well, I don't know if this is how they do it, but I'm going to throw this idea out to you and the rest of the league. And the defunct MLB, they have the World Series managers manage the game. And part of that process is selecting the reserve players. The starters are nominated by the fans, but the reserve players are voted by players, and the manager ultimately gets to choose based on that list. They get a list and they choose the rest of their roster. So I know Mike does a lot of work with the All-Star game and the different festivities, and I'm not saying to add something to his list if it makes it too difficult, but that could be an interesting way of seeing how people get selected if the World Series managers get to select who those guys are, because it's definitely interesting. You get into some rivalry type discussions. You get into the bias of wanting your own guys on the team, or maybe you're like, oh, I know this guy has a big bonus. I'm not putting it on the team.
I think that was the one joke as well. Jumping back to Burrows really quick. He's got a 10 million Royal Raker bonus.
Voting for him every year. Yeah.
Yeah. If poor RJ, everyone should just vote. Vote for Burrows. There you go.
Yeah.
Bring him 10 million extra dollars every year for the next 6 years.
But
That
you
would
don't
be,
want to have that burden, don't offer it.
yeah, that would be cruel and unusual punishment.
Because I know the
But
game comes up
hey,
with weird stuff every once in a while in contracts, but I guarantee you it did not. Someone, it might not have been RJ at first, but somebody put that in there. And then it like came in as part of the, well, if so and so's offering it, then to better that offer, then you have to, enter XYZ. So
yeah, this I'll be honest, it's not the first time I've seen that in there. So yeah, to your point, someone system picked it up somehow somewhere that's what they want, and it's and all joking aside, we wouldn't do that to RJ if
no.
Burrows doesn't deserve it, but that would be kind of a funny little wrinkle of, hey, maybe the character, the player doesn't actually deserve it, but he's got 6 years in a row of winning the award just so that you can ding that GM $60 million.
Yeah.
That would be funny. And then you got all the other players complaining that the ones that are actually deserving not winning it. But
Yeah. I mean, Bob could write an article about that.
there you go. Yeah,
Tied
no,
in with,
it's
tied in with the weather and tsunamis and other things.
it's always his predictions are always interesting. I always get a good laugh out of them because I know he purposely goes out of his way to make them over the top and different. So I appreciate that. It's always a fun read.
Yep. And it'll be interesting here shortly to see who indeed made the All-Star team.
Yep. It's sim day. Come on, Mike. Post it
Yeah.
an hour. Why not?
Yeah. Maybe we can I'll try to get this uploaded tonight. So hopefully, maybe I'll upload it in the morning though, to not steal any thunder away from the All-Star game. That's what
Yeah,
we'll do. We'll get it ready to go so it can drop tomorrow.
there we go.
All right. Well, I think that's all I've got on the list here. So we have plenty of more topics, and I know one thing I did want to reach out or mention before we dropped off was we've had a few GMs mention that they're interested in being in a future episode, kind of similar to what we did with Evan. So we're not ignoring you. We just we're getting this one in quick because there's some topics that we wanted to discuss early, and we'll try to get back on a regular schedule or get another GM on with us for the next one. So
And hopefully we'll have all three of us and we'll stop doing this patty cake of emergencies coming up. No more random dinners.
yeah, you guys are obsessed with your random dinners.
It's not us. It's not.
Like we were joking with Jay. Check your Google Calendar, Jay.
Yeah. I gotta do the same thing. It's
Yep.
shared calendar. There's stuff's on there. Hey, I will say my dinner was not on there. It was a last minute addition, and I didn't have a choice.
So at least she couldn't be mad at you from that aspect, unlike Jay's situation of just not reading the calendar.
Yeah, that one's on. It's there for a reason.
Yeah. We kid with Jay because we like him. So all right. We'll talk to you later, Mike.
All right, have a good one, Sean.
All right, see you.